Hi. You know, a lot's been written over the past 10 or 12 years about the health benefits of having a pet, like my little dog Jupiter here. There have been a lot of studies about how pets lower your blood pressure, reduce stress, and there have really been a lot of studies about the benefits to older people in particular. For instance, an older person who has a pet to care for is more likely to take better care of him or herself because of having to feed the pet and exercise the pet and entertain the pet, that they're more likely to do these kinds of things for themselves as well. But for some people, having a fuzzy little mammal like Jupiter here isn't feasible. And that's what I'd like to talk about today, is the benefit of having an aquarium of tropical fish. Because an aquarium of tropical fish can offer the same types of benefits that having a cat or dog can. You have to feed them and care for them. They're stimulating to watch. They're very interesting to observe. And you have to make sure they have the right type of habitat to live the kind of life that they need to live. And today we're videoing from my home, where we have about 12 aquariums, and I wanted to show you some of our aquariums and then show you how to set up your own aquarium. Now, this is the largest one we have. It's a 65-gallon aquarium, and what we have here are cichlids. These are very colorful and very intelligent fish, and they change their colors depending on what mood they're in. They'll flash and flare different colors, which I find interesting. But they're always up to something. They're always either moving the gravel around, making caves, staking out territories, mating, courting, raising families. And they're very intelligent. As you can see, they know me. They're all sort of crowding over here towards me to see what I'm doing. They're very interested in what's going on outside the tank. They probably think I'm going to give them a treat right now. But anyway, I wanted to introduce you to these fish. I'll tell you a little bit about some of them. There's an emerald cichlid, and these are Mozambique mouth brooders who lay their eggs in their mouths and hatch their babies in their mouths, and then the babies are free swimming. They even, with the mother senses danger, she'll call them back into her mouth. So they're very interesting to watch. And this is the first tank I wanted to show you. Now we'll go across the room and I'll show you another one. Well, here we are on the other side of the room. This is a 55-gallon tank. And some of the things I wanted to point out to you on this tank is to notice how we have set up a habitat for the fish. We have natural gravel. We have live plants, we have driftwood, we have caves for the fish to hide and get some sort of privacy. We also have a lot of filtering systems. There's an undergravel filter with these lift tubes here. We also have a back filter back here on all of our large tanks that is circulating the water and trapping any type of uneaten food or fish debris. If you can see, the back of this is collecting some today. And we have automatic feeders on all of our big tanks that drop a specified amount of food into the tank twice a day. But that's their staple food, and we also give them a variety. We have about 4 or 5 other types of foods that we feed them on occasion, sporadically. You may have heard that you shouldn't feed a fish very much, and a lot of people think that's because a fish will eat so much they'll explode or something. That's really not what happens. What happens is that the uneaten food does pollute the tank. It gets down into the gravel, and bacteria grows, and it becomes an unhealthy environment for the fish, and that's what causes the fish to die. People that come to our house always remark that our tanks are so clean, and always ask, oh, does that take a lot of work? And basically what it involves is having the right type of fish, the right mixture of a community of fish, and having the kind of fish that keep your tank clean for you. For instance, to have algae eaters, we have plecostomus, is what we use. I don't know what the plural of that is, plecostomi maybe. And then we have catfish that are bottom feeders. And then just fish that get along, and knowing how many fish to put in a tank is important, and there's a formula for figuring that out. I'll tell you about that later when we are setting up a tank. But I just wanted to point out to you, I'll tell you also why it's important to have live plants. Fish are very susceptible to stress, and that's why you want to have the nicest environment for them as possible. Just like with any other animal that you take into your home and domesticate as a pet, it is your responsibility to give them the most natural life possible. And if a fish is unhappy and is under stress, they will show it in they will become sick. And as you can see, all of our fish are very healthy and active and happy fish. These are also cichlids. This is called a chocolate cichlid. These are more mouth brooders. This is called a red hump geophagus. Not very colorful right now, but often it is beautiful blue and red. These fish also aren't showing their colors very much. I don't know why. It must be their nap time or something, but they're normally very yellow. And then some emerald cichlids in here, and American flag cichlids, red, white, and blue. And so that's about all I wanted to tell you about this tank, and now I'll show you just a couple more. I won't take you around to all 12 because of time limitations, and then we'll get busy setting up our little tank. Okay, here we are with a tank full of little baby fish I wanted to show you, and these are babies who were born here at our house. The orange ones that you see here are babies of those Mozambique mouth brooders I was telling you about earlier. This one mother had about 82 of them. And these guys, I've lost track now, but I think they're about 5 weeks old. The little striped ones are called convicts, and in the first tank that I showed you, I should have pointed those out, but they're beautiful fish. They're gray and black striped. They have an orange belly, and they're also very interesting fish. And they had about 50 babies. Excellent parents. They both worked tirelessly raising the babies. We have other babies in the house. We have blue acaras, and we have about 100 of those that eventually they're still with their mother. And I just wanted to give you an example of another natural habitat for fish. We have the natural gravel and the natural rocks and the natural plants, although I do have one artificial plant in here, this one with a purple tinge, and that was because a friend was breaking up fish keeping and gave me a box of supplies, and I thought that was really pretty. So those are the examples of the tanks I wanted to show you, and now let's get busy in setting up an aquarium, just the basic needs for setting up a small aquarium. Okay, now we're going to set up our own tropical aquarium. This is a 5-gallon size. It's a used aquarium that I got at a garage sale. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend getting a kit from one of the 3 fish supply stores in Missoula. I have dealt with all 3 in purchasing equipment, supplies, and getting advice from them, and I have found all 3 places to be very helpful and very knowledgeable. So take your pick, shop around, see which one you like best, who has the best deals for whatever it is you're interested in, or whose advice you feel most comfortable with. I have faith in all 3 of them. So and if you buy a new kit from one of the pet supply stores, it comes included in the price is the gravel and the filter and the pump and the heater and even sometimes the fish. So that's really the best way to go. For instance, when I bought this for $5 at a garage sale, I then had to buy all the accessories for it, and my little $3 or $5 tank cost me about $55. So the best way to do it is to get it as a kit from a new store, and normally you can get a $10 aquarium with all the accessories that you need for about $30. So first thing you want to do is especially if you buy a used aquarium, is to test it for leaks. So you want to fill it up with water and have it sitting in the place where you are going to keep it. Remember that water weighs about 8.5 pounds a gallon, so this little 5-gallon tank is going with the gravel in it and everything could weigh over 50 pounds. So you don't want to set it on some kind of unstable, wobbly plant stand. You don't want to set it on a television stand. You don't want to set it anything with water in it on top of a television or something like that. It's got to be a very secure base that you're going to set your aquarium on. You also don't want the aquarium near a direct light where a window is going to be allowing sun to be right down on it, because then you're going to have a lot of algae build up in the tank and it's unsightly. You also don't want it near a draft, because tropical fish are very susceptible to chills. They can get a lot of diseases if they get too cold. That's why you have a heater that has their temperature kept at one point. The safe range is, I think, between 72 and 80, but you don't want it even fluctuating between that all the time. You want it at one point, so you don't want it in front of a draft, in front of a door or something like that, or close to a window where there's going to be a draft and the fish will get chilled. You also don't want it on a piece of furniture that has drawers or doors that you're going to be opening and shutting all the time and startling the fish. You don't want to, every time you get a knife out of the buffet in the dining room, you don't want to be jarring the fish around. So keep those kinds of things in mind about the placement of your tank, and then fill your tank with water and make sure that you don't have any leaks. If you're going to have it on a nice piece of furniture, you may want to have a pad underneath it and a covering over it in case there are some leaks, so that you can stop the leak before it damages your furniture. But that's the reason to test that your aquarium is intact and is not leaking. And with a new aquarium, this is rarely a problem, but with a used aquarium, it's very important that you test for that. So once you know where you're going to place your tank and that it doesn't leak, then you're ready to put your under gravel filter system in. Now I couldn't find one that fit this exactly, so I bought two smaller ones, and then I had to cut one of them so that they could both fit in here. But this is an intact one, and this is the one that I cut. Now this is going to go on the bottom of the aquarium, just like this, and you'll notice this hose is going to be attached to an air pump that's going to be pumping air into the aquarium under the gravel and then sucking it up through here. Now on top of this, I'm going to put a filter head that's going to filter any debris that has accumulated under the gravel, such as uneaten fish food or fish excrement. Now what that filter looks like, you can get them in all different kinds of ways, and as I showed you in one of the other tanks, we have it's kind of an elaborate system. But for your basic aquarium, I like these kinds. This is a little container that's going to hold pieces of charcoal that are going to filter the water as it pumps through. And then on top of the charcoal, I'm going to place a little filter fiber to trap any of the debris that the charcoal doesn't. Now this is going to sit right here, so as the water comes through, it has to pass through this filter. And then the lid that goes on it has little holes in it. It's just a mesh screen so that the water will be bubbling through and bringing oxygen into the tank, but leaving all the debris in the filter here. But first, let me fill this for you to show you just what I mean. When you buy, you can buy a bag. As I said, these come in different. Sometimes you buy these that are already filled. I don't like those very much because you can't refill this, and once it's discarded, which I think you should change it about once a month, then you have to buy another one, and they cost about 75 cents a piece or something, or maybe $1. This way, you just buy a big bag of charcoal. It's always more economical to go like that, and just refill your container. So that's what I've done. This is the bag of charcoal. I'm not going to dip into that because it's dusty, and then my hands will get all dirty. So normally when you buy charcoal, you always need to rinse it well. I usually use a colander, strainer, something like that. I have some here that I've already rinsed, and I'm just going to put the charcoal into the container. You might want to do this over your kitchen sink before you're ready to start working on your aquarium. I wish there was a faster way to do this, but I'm just going to fill this about 3/4 of the way full with charcoal. And now I'm going to put the filter fiber. That's just what the bag says, filter fiber, and you see the little fish design on it. You get this at any fish supply store. Take a tiny little hunk of that, stuff it down in there, and then you're going to cap it, if you remember where you left your cap. And I do. Okay, so we're going to just stuff that down in there. I'm going to put the cap on. There's our filter. We'll put that there. We're ready to go. I already went and I did that with the other one, so it wouldn't take up so much time. So that one's ready to go. Now, you've got that in there. We might as well hook up the pump, since I'm talking about that right now. You wouldn't be turning your pump on right now. But this is a small little pump for a small tank. I'm just covering up the brand name because I don't want to be advertising any certain products or stores. But You can buy these pumps, as I say, if you buy a kit and a new kit from Pet Supply Store, you'll get the pump. If you want to do it, you know, piece by piece like this, you can get these pumps separately at the fish supply stores. You can also get these pumps at Kmart. Alright, so I just advertised the place, sorry about that. Well, let's say a department store, you can get these pumps. So, this is going to plug into your electrical outlet, like this. I'm not going to actually plug it in right now though, because we don't need to have air pumping in. And then I've got this adapter here so that I can have two different hoses going to two different pumps. You might see some small aquariums with just one pump. I figure the more air circulating, the better, and the more the more of a filtering system you have, the better. And so, even with a tank this small, I would have two. A lot of people would just have one. But anyway, you've got the air is going to come from this source, and then you're going to attach one of the hoses to the skinny little tube here, the air intake. Get that on there nice and secure. Put it down in there. And then you're going to do the same with the longer one. You can buy this hose, lengths of hose at any of the fish supply stores. You just go in, you tell them about what size you want and how much of it you want, and they snip you off a piece, and there you go. Very inexpensive. And so now I'm going to put that one on this one. Now our pump is ready to go. Now this would be sitting behind the tank somewhere out of sight. You're going to see some tubes and electrical cords and everything. That's why some people put a scenery in the background of their tanks. We've done that with one of our tanks here. With most of our tanks we don't. We kind of like that, you know, just a natural look like that. But one of our tanks we did because it was pretty unsightly. We have a tank sitting in our dining room near our table, and it is a nice scene to have this, a lot of, it's plants is what the scene is, instead of having these wires and tubes. But it's really not that distracting. I think you can probably see here all the lift pumps in this tank are sort of the bubbles are nice to watch, and all you can see is this one electrical cord that's really not that noticeable. If you look hard, you can see that there are the air pump tubes over there, but it's not something that you notice as soon as you walk in the door. So don't worry about this. This may look unsightly as it is right now, but once you've got fish and a decoration in there, it's not going to be as bad. The next thing you need is gravel. I just happen to have a bucket of gravel here. And the gravel is pretty heavy. That's going to add to the weight of your aquarium. So I need to move these rocks out of here first. That's going to be another part of my decoration. But you can just pour your gravel into the tank. Okay, now you saw a little bit of water come out of there first because, as I said, I just dismantled this the other night. This is the gravel that was in that tank. Okay, so you're going to move it around and cover up that under gravel filter. So see, it's starting to look like an aquarium already, isn't it? And I do like the natural gravel. Some people use colored gravel, and sometimes the colored gravel does bring out the colors of the fish better. I just kind of like the natural look of things. So now, the other thing you're going to need is a heater. As I mentioned, tropical fish must be kept warm, and you need to have a good heater. Don't ever get a cheap heater. And a small tank like this is very hard to control the heat in. And I would say it doesn't really make sense to start with a tank this small. This is a 5-gallon tank, as I explained. I don't know if I did explain it. I use this as a hospital tank. If one of my fish gets sick, I put them in here and treat the 5 gallons of water instead of treating 65 gallons of water. It can get pretty expensive on the medicine. Plus, you treat fish that don't need to be treated. So when I have one that gets sick, I put it in the hospital tank and treat this water. Normally, a 10-gallon tank is a great size to start with. 5-gallon tank is very hard to regulate the heat, and I do have a problem with that with this tank. But you would get a good heater, and this is what a heater looks like. You'll notice it has a water line there. You never want to let the water line go below that because then the heater will malfunction. And the heater, you must read the directions on the package very carefully. Follow them very carefully. You can't, you shouldn't have a heater that's heated and working and pull it out of the water. It's going to destroy the elements. You don't want to have it on and plunge it into cold water. You have to follow the directions carefully as they instruct you to do. And what you do is you put, like lukewarm water, room temperature water in, and set your heater and check. You do all this way before you put any fish in. It may be days and days before you ever put fish in your tank. You have to get your water temperature correct, and you have to get your water chemistry correct before you add fish. But you will then adjust the, you put a thermometer in also. Very important. It's very important to have a good thermometer. So you'll have a thermometer hanging in your tank so you can tell what the temperature is. If you don't like it there in the front, you can hang it on the side just so that you can go up and check it now and then to see what the temperature is. But you have a light will come on when the heater is in operation. When the light goes off, it means that it is at the temperature at which you have set it. Not that it has numbers on here, it has higher or lower. So you check and see, well, it went off at 68 degrees. Well, that's not warm enough, so you're going to give it, you never give it more than a quarter of a turn, so you're going to turn it a slight bit more. I'm now turning this because I finally have it set just right for what I want. So then when you have water in your tank is when you're going to plug your heater in. You don't want to plug your heater in without water in the tank. But how this just sits down in the water, and there is a screw here that you tighten it to the side of the tank so that it is permanently affixed. And it's kind of nice to have all the equipment kind of close together so that the fish have more of a free space to swim around and things. A lot of the fish like to hang out by the heater, maybe hide behind the heater or whatever. Sometimes fish they're a little afraid of new people in the house. That's one thing I love about our cichlids is that they're so sensitive and intelligent that they know me. When I come home, they're very excited, and if I would walk over here right now, they'd all come up to me. And but sometimes strangers will come to the house, and the fish react differently to them. Some people they're interested in, they're always interested in what's going on outside the tank. And some people, they'll come up to the tank, and the fish will smash into the glass trying to get away from them. They'll be afraid of them, or they will flare different colors. They'll try to warn the person not to come any closer. They're always changing their colors depending on what mood they're in, and it's another thing I like about these fish. But anyway, fish need places to hide, and they develop their own little personal habits and territories in the tank and things. So, okay, we got all of that. Then the next thing we want to do is put some rocks in there to make it more of a stimulating habitat for them. You don't want just a bare four walls for them to, you want to give them some kind of focusing point and some kind of sense of where they are. So it's fun to go around and find rocks for your aquarium, and I always like to go by where water is. I go by creeks and rivers and find interesting looking rocks. For a while I got into collecting rocks that were kind of heart shaped, and I always have a red heart in my hospital tank, the Sacred Heart or something. But one thing that I like to do is always give all of my fish, whether the book says that they are a fish that likes caves or not, I always like to give them a cave, and I haven't yet to meet a fish who didn't appreciate having a cave to get into now and then. So I just sort of make the foundation like this, and then I put a little lid on it, and then they got a nice little, got some fiber filter on that one, got a nice little cave that they can get into and hide and feel safe and secure, or just play. A lot of times the fish play with each other. They have games. They play tag, and remember when I first got fish, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I thought maybe one was being mean to another one, but they were just having a very lively game of tag going on. And anyway, you have to work around with your stuff. Then you'll have fish that might like to lay on top of this. And if you have a plecostomus, which you should in all your tropical aquariums because they're algae eaters, if you get algae accumulating on top of here, they'll get on here and lay there and accumulate that. Another fun thing about fish that a lot of people don't realize that have never had fish is that they sleep at night, and they lay on the bottom to sleep, or they may rest in a plant like a hammock, or they may lay on top of this rock or go into the cave. But if you get up in the middle of the night and come in and turn your fish light on, you'll see that they're all asleep. And that's why they need, I like to sit my little heart up like that, and you can get very creative, and it's very fun to do to decorate your tank, because one time I had just plain gravel, and then a friend gave me some red gravel, and I just sort of streamed the red gravel off of the heart, and it really looked pretty. So you might want to do something like this, and then maybe just a little pile of rocks like that would happen in nature somewhere. And you play around with that, and sometimes you get your tank set up, and even without fish, it looks just great. And so I think right now we're ready for some water. Now, as I said before, you do not put tropical fish in tap water. That will kill them. It has to be the right condition. It has to be the right level of acidity, the right level of whether it's alkaline or acid. It has to be the right pH. It has to have the right chemistry. And even when you get that all right, when you're moving fish from one tank to another, you have to slowly introduce them to the new chemistry of this water, in addition to the new temperature, even if there's a slight temperature change. So if we get this tank filled up and we're going to move one of these fish into it, first we put water from this tank into a plastic bag. Then we would net the fish out and put the fish into that plastic bag, and then float the fish in the bag in this new tank of water so that it gets used to this temperature while it's still in its own water chemistry. Then after about 15 minutes, we would add a little bit of this water, but this water is aged and conditioned for fish now, and we would add a little bit of it to the plastic bag and let the fish then for another 15 minutes get used to this new water chemistry. Then after that 15 minutes, we would net the fish out of that bag and into this new water. And that's how you introduce the fish. But when you would if you would start with just tap water, then you would have to buy water conditioners from your fish supply store. So for instance, I think they have some things called Start Right. Or you can get water from a friend's aquarium who has a healthy, established aquarium, who has had fish for quite a while, and they're all healthy, and who knows what he or she is doing. You take water from their tank, and that has all the right kind of good bacteria in it, and you can put a fish right in it after you've done the plastic bag routine. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take water from this tank and put it into this tank. And since I also just did a water change on this, I may put about three quarters of this full of this water, and then add a quarter of fresh water to it. But before I add it to it, I will dechlorinate it with a chemical that you use to take any of the chlorine that might be in water out of the water before you add it to your good conditioned aged fish water. Water, of course, is the most important thing to fish, so make sure you get your water right. I don't mean to make it sound like it's very complicated. It's not. You can get your tap water and get your conditioner from the fish supply store. I'm just saying, talk to the people at the fish supply store about how to get your water ready for fish. And then you can also take a water sample to them. They're all happy to do this, and they'll test your water to tell you if you're ready to put fish in it or not. They'll test it for an ammonia level. You don't have too much ammonia in the water, things like that. So this is going to be a real fun part. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to walk over here and take water out of this tank and add it to this tank. How do I do that? I siphon it out. And how I use a trusty siphon. Now there are other high-tech things. I happen to have one. It's a 50-foot hose that you hook right up to your sink, and it siphons out everything. But for the purpose of this is all that you need. This is a siphoning tube. This one is well used. And I'm going to have a bucket that I'm going to siphon the water into. to live here. As you can see, all my little friends are coming over to see what I'm doing. And they're hoping that I have a treat that I'm going to hand out. But you don't have to give them treats too often. And I gave them some yesterday. I might give them some a little bit later. But one thing that you'll find interesting, I think, you see how beautifully clear this water is. But when I get down under the gravel and I start the siphoning, you'll see some dirt, debris, bacteria, whatever it is, down there come up. And this is good stuff that we want. And when I pour it into here, it may not look very clear, but then it will all settle down, and that is the way we want it. So that's all I had to do. And you see I didn't get any water in my mouth. And let's see if we can get some of this. Well, this is all pretty clear, so I'm not getting you a good example of, see, that's the gravel that's just coming up. I'm not giving you a good example of what could be under that water. But I'm just going to take about this much at a time so that I can lift the bucket. As I said, the water is very heavy, and if I filled the whole thing up, I wouldn't be able to lift it very easily. So now I'm just going to take this water and pour it into this tank. Halfway full, so I need to do that again. We'll just take it from any place here. You can watch the water come through the tube so you know when to move your mouth away. I just splashed my feet, but these things happen. That's fish biz, you see. Matter of fact, I think I will just use the water to fill this, and then I'll add a little bit of water back to these guys. This tank has the heater that you don't have to worry about how low the water level goes. It's a different type of heater than this one, as I mentioned before. So, otherwise, if I was taking water out of this tank, I would unplug the heater before I started to do that, because I was going to take the water level down below where I should with the heater plugged in. One thing that you might always want to remember is to somehow remind yourself to get that heater plugged back in after you're finished, because it's very easy to forget. So it may be every time you unplug the heater, stick a little post-it note up somewhere or something to plug the heater back in, because if you leave it unplugged overnight and your fish get too cold and you're going to have a tank full of sick fish, they could get, maybe some of you have heard of this disease called ick, that is a pretty serious disease in fish, and they get it from chills, among other things, stress. But so as you can see, this water is not looking as clear as that water because we have stirred up some of the debris and bacteria. This is good debris and good bacteria. Now, you do need to change the water in your tank, and you do a partial water change, like 20 to 30% water change, and there's a big disagreement on how often you should do that. I have lots of books on aquariums, and you should get books on aquariums if you're going to have an aquarium. And some recommend once a week that you do a 20% water change. Some experts recommend that you don't do it more often than every 6 weeks. So you have to find somewhere in there that works for you and your fish and your tank. And of course, the larger the tank and the better filter system and the better community of fish that you have keeping the tank clean, and as long as you are feeding properly and not overfeeding, that's a very big danger. You don't want to pollute the tank with too much food. Then you could change the water less often, but you do need to change the water. You take out 20 to 30%, so if this is a 5-gallon tank, you don't want to take out any more than about 1 3/4 gallons or so each time you change the water. But say I did that every 3 or 4 weeks here, and probably maybe every 3 weeks. I don't think I would let a 5-gallon tank go longer than that. And you take out 20 to 30% of the water, and then you still have your remainder of good aged conditioned water in there. You're adding the 20 to 30% of fresh water from the tap at the right temperature. You're using your thermometer there at the tap to make sure you're getting the right temperature. You're putting it in the bucket first, make sure it's the right temperature. Then you're going to dechlorinate it, and then you're going to add it. It's okay to add it at that point to the tank that already has the good conditioned water, and you can add 20% right from the tap as long as it's dechlorinated and has the right temperaure. Now some of the experts at the pet stores may tell you to also condition the water from the tap, and I would say do whatever it is they tell you, especially with our water in Missoula. Things change all the time, and so at 1 month something may have been safe to do, another month it's not safe to do. So just ask the experts, get yourself a couple of good books, and you'll always know what to do. Now I hope this water settles down enough to so that you can see how pretty it's going to look once I get the rest, like get some plants in there and everything. I'm just going to take a tiny bit more water, and then we're going to finish our setup. One of the final things we need is a light. I'm doing this backwards. You don't need very much more water, but as I mentioned, fish do sleep, and fish definitely need a cycle of day and night. This is a natural way for them to be. You want to give them the most natural habitat possible. So they need day and night, and they also, if you're going to have plants, live plants, they of course need light. And there's a great advantage to having live plants, and there are some plants that are hardier than others and last longer than others and everything. You might want to experiment a little bit. But the plants help to with the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. So it's great to have live plants, and fish like to nibble on them. They have to be aquarium plants. You don't want to put your house plants in there, or they won't make it. But aquarium plants, and I happen to have some. Now I wonder how this is looking, if the water looks murky or if it's clear. I have a couple of live plants here that are typical aquarium plants, and I'm going to put one right there and just bury the roots in the gravel, and then take another one. It's a little bit darker, and you might want to put that, let's say, over in, let's see, I got that right in the middle. Maybe put that one over in this corner, by these rocks. I'm splashing all over the place. And then fish would like that a lot. That would seem to them like they're in the stream. If you want to, have some live plants, and then if you want to, you can add some of these artificial plants, and they look pretty nice in the tanks. Of course, make sure, and the fish like it. They like to swim in and out, and they scratch on the plants and everything. But you don't want to have everything too crowded. You want to make sure that they've got some areas to swim and some areas to sleep and things like that. So that looks pretty good to me. If you find, you should have a catfish that eats from the bottom. Those are basic fish you need. That eats, that's all it does is scavenge off the bottom. And you want to have a plecostomus, or a type of fish called an otis cinclus that eats algae from the glass and from the rocks. And then you have whatever other kind of fish you want. There's such a big variety, and you'll have such a great time looking at all the fish at the fish supply stores. Remember that there are some fish that do not get along with other fish. And there may be a salesperson who thinks you know what you're talking about and what you want and what you're doing. And if you don't, make sure that you do say that you are a novice, and is this a fish that you like the looks of this fish, but is this a fish that's going to get along with the other fish that you're thinking about buying or that you've already bought, or just in general, is this a good community fish? And the person may tell you, well, no, this fish is only good with others of its kind, because you don't want to buy fish, and a lot of people do this, buy fish because they're pretty, and then discover that they take them home and those fish kill all the other fish that they thought were pretty. So make sure that you're getting the right kind of fish. If your tank still gets a little bit of algae growing up on the inside of the glass, you can routinely take a razor blade like this and just reach inside and scrape and scrape and scrape the algae off. Or you can use something like this, and this is from a fish supply store. It used to have a handle on it, but it broke off. But that's also good for scrubbing like that. And you don't want to use anything other than stuff just for fish. You don't want to use buckets that have had any kind of soap in it. You don't want to use anything like this that's ever been around soap. You don't want to stick your hand in your tank if you have lotion on your hands or soap on your hands. Those are the kinds of things you have to remember. This is their environment. This is like the air you breathe. And so for you to stick your hand in here with lotion on it, or for you to grab the thing you just washed your dishes with to do that, it's going to be like someone coming up to you and spraying bug spray in your face or something, in the air that you're trying to breathe. So just be very, very careful about anything that you put into the tank. Actually, now I think the only thing left to do is put the light on, and this is the light fixture. It's called a hooded light fixture, and there's the light inside there. And this part here is made to have holes for the air tubes on either side, and then a hole for the heater. So that would just, well, actually, you know what? I would have to remove these air hoses and pass them through the hood first. But that's what we do. Easy enough to do. Just take your air hoses off. And I guess this water is still looking kind of murky, but you'll take my word for it that in an hour or so it's going to be crystal clear like this, and a beautiful looking tank that any fish would be happy to live in. Okay, so now we'll put it in there. It's kind of hard for me to be working backwards. I can't see if I've done this right or not. Oh, I don't have to move the heater over. Yeah, I got the heater good and tight. Now I have to move it over, and I can't. Okay, we're going to move the heater over so that the lid fits on well. So now the heater is right there. Tighten that back up. And we're going to put the air hoses through the hood. And then we'll connect them to their little tubes. And I guess I should do that. And when you're going to feed your fish, you would just lift the lid like that and drop your food in there. Right now I'm going to reach in and get my hoses connected just so I can show you how this all looks once we turn it on. Good enough. At least when you set up yours, you have the advantage of having seen me do it when I set up mine. took me days because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. My first one, I mean. So, let's call that good for demonstration purposes. And now, we're all hooked up. We've got our air pumps are going to start pumping. Our light will work. Again, there we go. Okay. Now, you best see when we get electrocuted on live videotape. Just kidding. Always do be careful around electricity and water, of course. But, okay, we got our heater we have to plug in. We have our pump we have to plug in. And we have our light that we have to plug in. So every aquarium is going to have at least 3 things to be plugged in. And I have an extension cord here, and we're ready to go. This is the pump. It's going to take a minute to get going, but you can probably see those bubbles starting already. That was the light. I haven't turned it on yet. And this is the heater, and maybe you see that heater light come on just then. Okay, that pump is going pretty slow right now, but it's just getting going. You can increase the airflow this way. You don't want it too strong so that it pops your filter heads off. But this determines, you know, how much air you want pumping through. Now we turn our light on. And there we have an aquarium with the filter and the cave and the rocks and the plants and the heater and the light. And beautiful addition to anyone's home. A lovely way to get in touch with other living creatures. It's enjoyable, it's entertaining, it's fulfilling. The maintenance work involved in it is sort of like tinkering type of work, very therapeutic. I enjoy it. I hope if you're interested, you'll have a lot of fun doing it. And thanks for tuning in today.